A senior United Nations official warned on Sunday that there is only a narrow window left to prevent famine from spreading further across the Gaza Strip, urging Israel to allow unrestricted humanitarian aid into the territory. The warning comes as fighting intensifies between Israeli forces and the Palestinian militant group Hamas, leaving hundreds of thousands of civilians at risk of starvation and disease. According to data from a global hunger monitoring system, large numbers of Palestinians are already experiencing or are on the brink of famine, particularly in Gaza City, the enclave's largest urban center, where Israel has launched a new offensive. The humanitarian situation in Gaza has been deteriorating for months as the conflict continues with no sign of resolution. Shortages of food, clean water, medicine, and fuel have reached critical levels, with aid agencies repeatedly stating that current deliveries are nowhere near sufficient to meet the overwhelming needs of the population. Hospitals are struggling to function without reliable power, families are forced to ration whatever food they can find, and children are bearing the brunt of hunger-related illnesses. The United Nations and aid groups stress that without immediate and unhindered access for humanitarian convoys, the crisis could soon reach irreversible levels. Israel has insisted that it is targeting Hamas fighters and infrastructure, but its military operations have significantly restricted the flow of aid into Gaza. Border controls, security checks, and ongoing clashes near crossing points have created obstacles for humanitarian agencies attempting to deliver supplies. The UN official emphasized that while security concerns are acknowledged, collective punishment of civilians by limiting access to food and medicine cannot be justified. He noted that the international community must urgently step up diplomatic efforts to secure agreements that allow life-saving aid to move freely and safely into the besieged territory. The situation has drawn mounting concern from global leaders and humanitarian organizations. In New York, officials at the United Nations headquarters reiterated calls for an immediate ceasefire or at the very least, the establishment of safe corridors for aid deliveries. They warned that famine, once fully entrenched, is extremely difficult to reverse and could claim thousands of lives within weeks. Humanitarian experts added that beyond the immediate crisis, the long-term impact of widespread malnutrition will likely leave deep scars on Gaza's children, affecting their health, development, and future prospects. In Cairo, diplomats engaged in discussions aimed at finding ways to alleviate the crisis, including proposals for monitored humanitarian corridors that could ensure aid reaches civilians without being diverted. Egypt, which shares a border with Gaza, has been playing a central role in mediation efforts but faces its own challenges in balancing security concerns with humanitarian responsibilities. Officials there warned that without swift action, the crisis could spill over into a regional emergency, further destabilizing an already fragile Middle East. The humanitarian community is also grappling with the logistical difficulties of operating in a war zone. Aid convoys have faced delays, diversions, and in some cases, direct attacks. Relief workers have repeatedly stressed that they require not only permission to deliver aid but also assurances of safety for both staff and recipients. International humanitarian law obliges all parties in a conflict to protect civilians and ensure access to essential supplies, yet in Gaza, these principles are increasingly being undermined. For the people of Gaza, the situation on the ground is becoming unbearable. Families report going days without sufficient food, while prices for whatever remains available in local markets have soared beyond reach for most. Parents struggle to feed their children, hospitals lack basic medicines, and shelters housing displaced persons are overcrowded and unsanitary. As fighting continues in Gaza City and beyond, displacement adds further pressure on already scarce resources, creating a vicious cycle of hunger, poverty, and despair. The United Nations has made clear that time is running out. Without immediate and large-scale humanitarian access, the narrow window to avert famine may close within weeks. The call to Israel is unambiguous: allow unrestricted aid into Gaza to save civilian lives. The responsibility also lies with the broader international community, which must intensify diplomatic engagement, provide financial support for relief operations, and ensure that international humanitarian law is upheld. As the conflict shows no sign of abating, the risk of a devastating famine looms over Gaza. The lives of hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children hang in the balance, making urgent humanitarian action not only a moral obligation but an essential step toward preventing an unfolding catastrophe.